Good morning. It is Monday morning, and this is Moyra from Gorski Wellness, helping you live your best life. I am here and always love Monday mornings, and because I come to you live and share some relevant information and connect with you and just share with you some things that I've learned in my life to help you live your best life. And today I am so excited to welcome my guest who will be joining us in a few minutes. Cancer is that C word that we hear that we just don't want to hear. It impacts us, it impacts our family, it impacts our friends, and it ain't good sometimes. But I have met a woman who I am so inspired by because she's had a diagnosis of cancer twice. And she is living her best life and living a vibrant life. And I can't wait to introduce you to her. But I want to tell you a little bit about cancer if you don't know it already. New cases of cancer diagnosis in the U.S. this year, 1.7 million. Good morning. Good morning, Susan. Good morning, Carla. And Carla's watching, so I'm going to try to get her in here in just a second. The 5 most killing cancers, okay, the top 5 cancers: lung and bronchial, colon rectal, breast cancer, pancreatic, prostate. And my friend who's coming on has had 2 of those. And she, like I said, is alive and she's vibrant and she's living her best life. And her story is just tremendous. And so I want to add her in here. And so let's wait a little second here. Cancer mortality is higher among men than women. But almost 39% of men and women will be diagnosed with cancer at some point. So 1 in 3 will be diagnosed with cancer at some point in their life. 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with cancer this year. 1 in 8. Good morning, Carla.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Great. It's a little dark out here as it is 6:30 in the morning. So try to avoid my Christmas trees in the back there, but I'm delighted to be on with you this morning.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for getting up early. I mean, I know we're both early risers and this is awfully early, but we both have a very full day. So this was our best time to get together and to share with others. So I'm glad that super glad and so thrilled that you said that you would join us today. So I was just giving some statistics about cancer, and of the top 5, most killing cancers, you've had 2 of them. And here you are smiling with us. And this morning, my family, when I think about my family and how cancer's impacted my family, my mother, my grandmother, both of my grandmothers, and my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law most recently, one of my cousins. So it's something that's so very common. So again, we're here to talk about hope. We're here to talk about how, more and more cancer is coming, but really if and when we perhaps might be diagnosed with cancer, that there is hope. So I just wanted you to start in the beginning, kind of what your life was like before cancer and what happened that led the doctors to finding that first cancer diagnosis for you.
Okay, so in 2011, actually it started well before that, but in 2011 was when my body said, we've had enough abuse, and all my internal organs were plotting against me. And I'd worn myself down to nothing. And on a scan, I was hoping that I could have a hysterectomy done, but the doctor told me that my health was not good enough. My hemoglobin was at 4.7, so I needed many blood transfusions to try to get me on my feet. And this is a problem that I had ignored for years. Really heavy flow with periods, blood clotting, exhaustion, bloating. I mean, you name it, I had it, and boy, could I deny it and ignore it. And for 2011, my body said, we're done. So when I was diagnosed, initially, I'd gone into the emergency room thinking I was having some kind of heart attack, and it actually ended up being fluid on my lung. And a chest X-ray would show a pancreatic tumor. And I was in my doctor's office the following Monday. This was on a weekend. And he said, it's no big deal. Don't worry about it. It's a pancreatic tumor. We do this really easy surgery, which, by the way, is a lie. I underwent the Whipple, which is, of course, one of the most invasive surgery you can have. And I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. At the time, I wasn't nearly as smart as I am now to realize what a dangerous and deadly diagnosis for most people that is. Nor was I looking for signs because I was busy denying how terrible I felt.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I just want to interject just a second. I was doing some this morning before we got on. I always try to do that in the morning, just do a little bit of inspirational reading or leadership reading thing. And it's from a leadership book that for a gentleman that we saw at our conference, Brendan Bouchard, but I just thought it was so appropriate for today. I mean, he talks about basically about denial. And he was talking about business, how we get busy with business and we get busy with busyness, that it blinds us to what's important just long enough sometimes for things to fall apart. And I thought, how appropriate for our discussion this morning.
Well, and, I think the statistics that you gave in the beginning, are just really a leading indicator of how unhealthy a society we are. And most people think, it's just what I eat. And that is one element of, eating well. But, and we're going to talk about some of the other factors, but I underwent the Whipple. I was in the hospital for 19 days. I came out of that surgery with a crushing depression. I had never had depression before, and they actually treated me for clinical depression. The recovery was pretty awful. No one ever talks to you about having drains in, and after you've had drains in for 6 weeks, and having those removed, it was pretty awful and painful. Mood-wise, my body was so depleted because, remember, I'd been such an expert in being in denial. Her body was like, we're mad at you. And like my body just kind of turned its back on me and said, you better give us what we need or we can't do this. And so I learned a really invaluable lesson. And the really interesting part of my story is I'd grown up with a mom who was passionate about Shaklee products. And I just said, yeah, I don't have an interest, as I continued to use Tide and I continued to use bleach and I continued to drive through, walk up or drive around to go eat food, which, by the way, really is chemically modified and not good for me. So as I look back on that experience, I realize how not only was I in just complete denial, I just abused myself. I'd never allow anyone to abuse theirself like that as a therapist, but to abuse myself, bring it on. It was never moderation. It was always over the top. And let's face it, my addiction was bad food. Bad.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, I'm from the medical profession too. Years ago, I mean, I have a bachelor's of science in nursing and worked in nursing for a period of time, and then was in medical sales where I was in the hospital. So I've had a lot of experience, as a nurse and being around nurses, doctors, healthcare professionals. And I got to tell you, we're notorious for taking care of everybody else, right?
oh,
But not paying attention to us because we're paying attention to everybody else. And so this really, I think, it's no surprise, right?
And what's so ironic is the minute we start feeling better, let's just hop back on that bandwagon again and start abusing ourselves again. So as humans, we're just silly creatures that we just do not get the fact that lifestyle is such a leading indicator of how we feel every day. So I had surgery in October, came home at the first part of November, went back to school because I was in school at the time to complete my bachelor's and go on to get my master's degree so I can, obviously be a trauma therapist, which I am now. And I never looked back, but I also didn't look ahead to realize how important prevention. So to add to my story, because I think I'm a magnet for tumors, in November of last year, of course, I'm very busy at that time of the year. getting ready for the holidays. And I was in the shower one morning and I felt a lump in my breast. Now, keep in mind, I'm not very busty, so a lump could be an enhancement for me, right? I was thinking, wow, this is cool. And I remember calling my sister Sarah and saying, I found this lump. And she's like, okay, so like go get a mammogram. Okay, now keep in mind, the last mammogram I had, honestly, before I had surgery, when I was diagnosed with breast cancer in February, was 7 years ago. So don't think for a minute I'm one of those, hey, let me take advantage of all the baseline screening. I just was in denial about, like, that could never happen to me. So
And can you share with us, Carla, how old are you now, or how old were you at those diagnoses?
So when I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, I was 41. Okay. No, actually, I'm sorry. I was 51, 50, 51, 51. And when the breast cancer diagnosis came, and by the way, I also, upon feeling that tumor, chose to put it off until February. Okay, because it's not like I rush in and go, oh, hey. But, in the meantime, the holidays were here. My mom passed away in January. I thought I had a lot on my plate, but here's the irony. What my oldest daughter's youngest son has cystic fibrosis, and we never saw that coming. And of course, we don't really realize genetically the secrets that hide in our family history until we start, having grandkids. So I always get a flu shot when I'm around Brooks. And I brought all my kids out last December to go to the Polar Express. So right after I found my lump, which was just before Thanksgiving, I came down with a cold. And, when you live in Arizona, okay, we don't have harsh winters. I mean, a harsh winter is, 40 degrees and people are complaining. But I had this cold. And when I went to see my doctor to get the flu shot, I said, man, I can't get rid of this cold. And she said, don't worry about it. Everybody's got it. So I was diagnosed with breast cancer after I had a biopsy, which by the way, I already knew I had cancer. I knew that. I knew something was with this. I opted to be treated in Scottsdale at the Virginia Piper Cancer Institute, and I had a rock star surgeon. And a couple of interesting things when I met her, of course, keep in mind, my kids and cancer, those two words are not synonymous with happiness. So I went under the radar. My sisters took me to my appointments. They're the only ones that knew. There's no way I could share this information with my kids. So
I have a friend who, well, maybe I shouldn't say that. I won't tell you, because I have a friend that did the same thing when she suspected something, that perhaps something had come back. Nobody in the family knows.
Well, I'm just here to tell you, my kids were like, well, first of all, you hear the word cancer and it's terrifying. We equate cancer, we think of death. And I did share with you that when I went in for a PET scan with the pancreatic situation, one of the techs said to me, hey, be glad this isn't breast cancer, because breast cancer comes back and kills you. So when the radiology oncologist called me and said, hey, you've got breast cancer, that's not what I heard.
Yeah, right.
You're going to die. When I met with a surgeon, she said something interesting to me. And by the way, 3 years previous, I started working with a naturopath because I hadn't been feeling very good. And so this is where what my mother told me, and by the way, for all of you that are out there listening, especially kids, your moms are always right, okay? What my mother tried to tell me years ago was so true in taking good care of my body, eliminating chemicals from the home. I mean, all of these things my mother talked to me years ago about. I didn't listen. So when I saw my surgeon, she said, you have the best kind of cancer you could have. Now, I didn't know there were various kinds
good or bad,
good cancer, but she said, looked at the MRI, she said, I don't know if you realize this, but you see all these little tentacles here. They've been unable to attach to a blood supply. So I know that your immune system has done an extraordinary job with suppressing the tumor's growth. Now, what that meant to me is less invasive surgery. I had a lumpectomy and a sentinel node biopsy, and I did 10 rounds of radiation, no chemo. So the irony was, I called my surgeon a week before my surgery and I said, listen, I've got a cold. So I don't know if this is a go or we need to reschedule. She goes, no, I'll take it. It's no problem. So I had surgery April 6th and I woke up April 7th without a cold. My nose was no longer plugged. I woke up and I thought, holy cow, like I don't have a cold. So when I went back.
Yeah, I mean, because the cancer, I mean, the tumor was gone, right? So your little
Yes,
strong system could go and take care of your cold.
Totally.
Instead of.
And my body was just like, Carla, we're so over you. Like, we're just over you. So they just said, like, the only way that we can protest. And by the way, I'm sure my immune system is like, it'd be helpful if you could help us. Getting some rest, maybe eating better, maybe managing your stress, right? Because, you know, let's face it. I mean, Moyra, you know what it's like to be a nurse, and you know, like, try to help people who don't want to help themselves. Okay, well, I'm a therapist. It's not much different of, you know, I want a different life, but by the way, I'm not willing to do anything different to get there. So
right.
Take a good hard look at why my body is a magnet for tumors. So now what I realize is that nutrition to me is so important. It's what fuels my body. And when you're talking about cancer, of course, cancer is all about rogue cells, not healthy cells. Once the bad guys clump together, they try to recruit the good guys in. So I realized the only way that I could quit being a lightning rod for cancer tumors was to stop them at the very base of my cell production. So healthy red blood cells typically mean you have a healthy body, but it means body, mind, and spirit. So not only exercise, like Moyra is she's a rock star. Like I watch her videos in the morning with her going to yoga and I'm like, hashtag jealous as I'm sitting here in the comfort of my living room doing nothing. So I that I needed to get moving because my BMI, so body mass index and breast cancer, let me give you a little heads up here. And by the way, for anyone on this call, if you know anyone that has breast cancer, please share this information because this is something your doctor's not going to tell you. But body mass index is so important because your fat cells release an enzyme called aromatase. And aromatase converts to estrogen in the system. And of course, in breast cancer, they're always concerned, you know, how hormonally based is your cancer? So if you think about it, when you have breast cancer, one of the after treatments after surgery and the traditional treatment of chemo and radiation is putting you on an aromatase inhibitor. So instead of saying, hey, hit the treadmill, get some weight off, do some yoga, start meditating, eat clean, your doctors are never going to tell you that because they get paid to intervene. And frankly, they like it when you're sick. And cancer is so lucrative to treat, they never talk about prevention. But I went into my oncologist and said, this is what I'm doing, and this is not what I'm doing. So,
well, and what I love about that is that you educated yourself. I mean, okay, you lived in the world of denial for a long time. Okay, so again, many of us can relate to that, right? You can raise your hands in the comments below if you can relate to that. But then you also decided, because it's important to you, you also have children, you have grandchildren. Sometimes we wake up and say, you know what, I'm going to do it for them, right? If I can't do it for me, I'm at least do it for my spouse. I'm going to do it for my grandkids or my kids or something like that. So you started to get educated. And you took control. You didn't say that you knew everything. You continue to learn. You continue to learn. I just want to say the national expenditure, just so that I get the national expenditure for cancer. Ready for this? $147.3 billion. So, you know, it is a lucrative business. It takes a lot of money to care for people that have cancer. But it is true. Physicians are trained to, you know, see you again, see you again. Here's a medication, here's a medication. They're not trained to say, hey, let's look at your diet, Carla. Let's sit down. Let's tell me about your stress. Tell me about your day. Things that we do when we work with you now and say, okay, tell me about your day. How does your day look? They don't do that because they want to see the next person.
Well, and what's
And I'm not saying that community, I mean, the medical community has its place, and I'm not saying that they don't.
sure,
But
but you know,
there, it's
buyer beware. It's buyer beware. And when they suggested I went to go see a nutritionist, or a dietitian, I'm sorry. This is what she said to me. She said, you know, all she cared about was the portion on my plate. She didn't care if I was eating McDonald's as long as I ate the kids' meal. Excuse me. So I said to her, yeah, I can't come back and see you because this is nonsense to me. And I is crazy to think that you think it's okay for me that I can eat fast food as long as I eat a kid's meal. So I said to my primary care physician, I'm not going to go back and see her. That is ridiculous. But again, you have to be your own best advocate. And when in, get a second opinion. And by the way, I said to my surgeon off the bat, I take Shaklee supplements. This is what I'm going to do. I told my oncologist, I'm not taking the aromatase inhibitor because the side effects don't even warrant the statistics of that being effective in my case were so slight. I said, I'm not going to do it. And she said, well, you know, we could do a round of chemo. And I said, yeah, I'm not doing that either. So what I did tell her that I would commit to doing is getting my BMI down. My surgeon said the best things you can do to prevent cancer, Carla, are managing your stress, watching your diet, getting your weight down, okay, and finding joy, happiness, mindset. And by the way, my surgeon is a rock star. She's Asian, go figure. And so her approach to cancer is very different. And she said to me, she goes, Carla, you're going to beat this because your attitude, for one, and the fact that you're willing to jump in and go, you know, listen, I can do a much better job. I don't want to be a lightning rod for tumors. It's no fun. It's very stressful. And the other thing is, I have knowledge. And by the way, I just want to disclaim one thing right now, because people are going to share this video because there's power and knowledge in sharing. So the disclaimer is Shaklee is not going to cure cancer.
Right.
And
right. We're not here to do that at all.
Nope. It's not going to happen. But let me tell you what it does do. Shaklee supplements on board give my body the advantage of being able to fend off the bad. And, you know, it also helps me feel better. So I want to get up and get moving in the morning, you know, clarity of thought. Let's face it, I'm going to be 58 years old here shortly. And I live a life where I feel good. So to me, my nutrition has now become a non-negotiable. And exercise, a non-negotiable. Self-care, a non-negotiable. Making sure that I love myself enough that I don't abuse myself. So Shaklee for me is the vehicle that allows me to meet so many of those, like check so many of those boxes. For instance, if you know anybody that is coming down with a bad diagnosis, they're constantly not feeling well, allergies, chronic illness, they need to get clean in their home. Chemicals, by the way, a great resource is the Metabolic Approach to Cancer. Order it on Amazon. It's going to talk to you about the carcinogens path of least resistance. People, that is our skin. It's how we inhale. It's our lungs. And so cleaning up your environment is so key. And by the way,
do you happen to know the author of the book?
You know something? I will send you the link. I'll post it on Gorski Wellness.
Yeah.
And, you know, here's the other thing is, you know, I have people tell me this all the time. Oh, you know, listen, yeah, I wear Birkenstocks and I eat organic. I'm going to be okay. And it's, well, don't buy into the organic label stuff like that's the end all be all, because it's not. We need some extra help plugging in with our diet. And again, it is the meditation or going to yoga, by the way, which I think is one of the best things we can practice, getting your cardio in and running. And by the way, having great friends that we talk to and we're connected to. It shocks me. I belong to this group on Facebook, and actually I'm not very active on it anymore, is, hey, I've got breast cancer. And one of the things that just was shocking to me is how little community women have. And they're so terrified of cancer, they couldn't get rides to or from, they didn't know what questions to ask. So I came up with 10 questions to ask your oncologist. I mean, the most important one being, if this was your wife or your daughter or your mother, is this the path of treatment you would recommend? Their feet to the fire, because I'm just here to tell you, if you get stuck in the medical system, it is going to be treatment after treatment after treatment. Now, some people need that level of care. I was fortunate and I didn't. And I just want to say one thing. You need to know what kind of cancer you've got when you're diagnosed. You need to know the cell type. And by the way, whether you're HER2 positive or negative, whether it's hormone driven or not, is so important, because it's going to depend on the type of treatment that your doctor is going to suggest. And and by the way, you're a nurse. So what a tremendous resource you are to, all of us, because I'm telling you, I would much rather ask a nurse than ask a doctor. I would.
Yeah. Amen to that.
Yeah.
Amen to that. I mean, the nurses, can I just make a commercial? I think the nurses, again, I've been out of nursing for a long, long time, but I do remember, and I've been in the hospitals and seen nurses, since then, but they should be paid way more than they're being paid, because especially those ICU and those CCU nurses, I'm telling you, they run the show. They get like one patient a day and they run the show. So, and one thing, and another thing, just before you mentioned a few things there, and this has become so important to me this year, is just this whole self piece and this whole asking for support, because it's become very evident to me based on like a wonderful seminar weekend that I went to and some really wonderful friends, that I don't ask for support enough. And I think because I think about support, I think, oh, I got to ask for help. And I was raised in a home with very loving parents and a mother who's very strong and very proud. And like, we just do it, right? We just get up and we do it. And we like ask questions later. And so to ask for support, that meant in my head, well, that means I'm less than, right? I'm not capable, but I am capable. So I'm just going to do it. And I'm here to tell you that we have to just get rid of that. I mean, I'm here to say, step into your own greatness and empower yourself and go and like, don't apologize. But there is this piece that we have to pay attention to that's called self-care, and it's called asking for support. And that support, Carla, can be giving your girlfriend a call and saying, hey, you want to go for a walk? I got a friend I got a couple of them, and they text me, can you walk today? Can you walk today? And it's about the walking, right? It's about the exercise, but it's also about that connection with those girlfriends and like being able to just take care of ourselves and talking, or sitting in the backyard, or just saying to your family, you know what? I'm going to the movies tonight by myself. I've done that because, I need to get away and I need to decompress by myself, or I need to go to yoga. That self-care is not selfish. I know we hear that all the time, but it's not. It's so important.
It's actually self-preservation. When usually when a client calls to see me, it's a 911 call. One of the questions I always ask is, what are your hobbies? And I get this blank stare like, what in the world are you talking about? And just because we're grown-up women doesn't mean that we should ever lose our sense of wonder and curiosity and adventure. Just because we're someone's mom, by the way, I don't think there's anything more stressful than adult children. So say to me, hey, gosh, I'm so stressed out. I have little kids. I'm like, haha, yeah, well, hide and watch. That's going to change. Wait till they get married and then you have more people to worry about. But what I'm going to say is it's also a great sense of joy. But just like being your own best advocate, you need to realize that when your cup is empty, you are no good to anybody. You're no good to yourself. And, you and I laughed about this when we were talking yesterday for a minute, but it's like, I tell clients, I wish you were more interested in, plugging yourself in as you are in making sure your cell phone's plugged in. And disconnecting from social media where, we take a look at a post of someone and go, oh my gosh, I wish, like I had their life. First of all, if I can give any advice, quit keeping up with the Kardashians. It's not real life. Okay. Real life,
That's right.
we're going to struggle, and we're humans, and most of us don't have chefs, and most of us can't work out 20 hours a day or have.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
What we can do is we can love ourselves enough to listen and be still enough to know what we need. I loved when you said, like, there are mornings I know I need to go to yoga. Okay. That's your body saying, listen, I need to move. I need oxygen, and to be still within your mind. We live in such an online world, that we feel so disconnected in an age of connectivity, which makes no sense because we don't have enough human interaction.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think as we wrap this up, and because we could talk for hours and we know that about ourselves. And, but I think, again, it's to just kind of review. I mean, again, let's not live in a state of denial. Let's not deny the fact, though, that if you get diagnosed, it can be scary. And there may be and we encourage you to do that, is to learn what you can. And if it's reaching out to somebody that's had that diagnosis before, or getting in a support group, or getting a support group that's on Facebook, there's lots there, but learn and then decide. Don't be overwhelmed by, oh, there's so much, but decide today, what are the things that I can do today? And what are the things I can do tomorrow? And what are those small steps? And it's not, again, only eating right, but hey, let's look at cleaning up our diet. Let's look at cleaning up our environment. Let's look at cleaning up our mind. Let's clean some things up and get rid of the crap that's, weighing us down. And we're not, again, here guaranteeing that that's going to, save your life. But boy, what you and I talked about yesterday, that we are in this company, we partner with a company that has safe products that you can trust, and a philosophy of, again, living in harmony with nature that you can trust. And our mission is the same. I mean, you and I are on different teams. We don't have the same upline, downline, all that. We're on different teams. So we're doing it because we want to help America. We want to help the community, because we're on this mission to help people live their best lives. And I don't say that lightly. I mean, that's what I'm all about, is I want to help you find something so that you can live a vibrant and healthy life. And there may be some stumbles along the way. You and I know, because we've been through it in our lives. We counsel people that have been through in their lives. There are stumbles along the way, but there are also steps that you can take so that things could be better. And I think again, have done this complete turnaround from complete denial and let's just abuse ourselves until we can't take it anymore, to, you know what, I'm going to get up each day. Instead of saying, I'm going to wait till I'm better, I'm going to just start living today. And, but knowing that I can make the choices, I can do the things today that I have control over. And that's even just smiling at myself when I look in the mirror and saying, you know what, you're awesome. You're pretty awesome, Carla. You're pretty awesome, Moyra. And then just going, through your day.
For me to kind of close, a couple of takeaways. For any of you on this call, first of all, for anyone that is listening to this, share this. Because someone has got cancer. Cancer diagnosis, it's just information, okay? Don't give cancer the advantage by simply not doing anything, okay? When it comes to chronic illness, give it the advantage by not doing anything. Ask questions. Reach out to Moyra. I will post the metabolic approach to cancer on her Gorski Wellness page. And in closing, let me just say one thing. I'm grateful for the challenges and the adversities I've had, because it's given me time to reflect on how precious life is, and more importantly, for me to make different choices. Not everybody gets a second chance, okay? I think sometimes I'm like a cat. I don't want to test the 9 lives theory, but what I do know is that every morning when my feet hit the ground, I give thanks. And the thing is it would almost be hypocritical of me to continue to give thanks on the one hand while I continue to abuse and derail myself on the other.
Mm-hmm.
Be in integrity with yourself. Take care of yourself. Love yourself. Power up. Give yourself the things that make you love yourself and love others. And by the way, when it comes to illness, realize we're the ones that open the door and invite it in. So if you don't want illness to visit, then prevent and do all that you can. It's not a 100% guarantee, but I promise you this, when you feel better, you'll live better. And thank you so much for allowing me to share my story. And for if you have questions, reach out and ask. I will make sure Moyra gets the resources. And by the way, don't be a statistic, because you don't have to be in most cases. Stand up, hero in your own life. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks, Carla. Thank you so, so much. I'm so, so glad that we could make this happen. So valuable, this information that you shared and that we shared. And I hope that, again, like anybody's watching, go ahead and share it, because, again, those statistics show that there's somebody probably next door down the street that really, really needs to hear this.
1 in 8 in 2017. It's looking like the statistic for 2018 is going to be 1 in 5.
People need to hear this. So
well, that's happening. So don't smile about that anyway. And by the way, get your mammograms, get your colonoscopy, get your baseline stuff out of the way. You got to know what you got to know. Eliminate everything you can, and then take care of yourself. You owe it to yourself. And thank you, Miss Moyra.
Yeah.
And to all of you out there in Facebook land, have an absolutely fabulous Monday. And by the way, this was my Monday motivation, was spending Monday morning with Moyra. I'm pretty excited about that. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining me, Carla. Thanks, everybody, for joining. We'll see you next Monday. Next Monday, I have a really wonderful special guest who happens to be my son. My son, who is the reason why I started the company a long, long time ago. And I have convinced him, as I could do, to share his story. And he's got a really wonderful one. So I can't wait to share next Monday. So again, for joining us. Go out and make it a great day. Thanks again, Carla.
Bye.
Bye-bye.